I froze at the kitchen island, the scent of simmering chili still hanging in the air when my son's voice cut through it like glass. Don't argue with my wife in her house. His wife. Her house. The words echoed against the walls I'd painted, the floors I'd paid for, the roof I'd kept over his head for 30 years. He didn't just forget whose name was on the deed, he forgot who raised him beneath it. Wait, before we go any further, I gotta ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. Carla didn't flinch. She stood at the kitchen island, hands wrapped around the handle of her Dutch oven, watching steam curl from the simmering pot of chili she'd been perfecting since morning. The noise had come from behind her, near the dishwasher, where Jenna was rummaging through drawers like a raccoon who owned the place. Carla turned slowly. That's the nonstick. You want the cast iron for cornbread. Jenna held the pan in both hands, blinking like she hadn't heard her. It's just a pan, Carla. You're so... She paused, lips tightening. Controlling. Controlling. The word dangled in the air like a slap that hadn't quite landed. Carla took a measured breath, reaching for the wooden spoon beside her, more out of instinct than necessity. Stir. Don't react. Stir again. I'm particular, Carla said quietly. There's a difference. Jenna huffed. Well, in our house, we use what's clean, not what's antique. Carla's hand stopped mid-stir. There it was. The shift. Not your house. Our. Before she could respond, footsteps thundered down the hall, bare feet slapping against tile. Tyler entered like a man mid-battle, jaw tight, t-shirt wrinkled, phone still in one hand. Don't talk to her like that, he snapped. Carla's eyes didn't move from the pot. Excuse me? You're always correcting her, he said, pointing the phone toward her like it was a weapon. Always nitpicking. It's exhausting. I asked her to use the cast iron. In my kitchen. Carla's tone was low even, but the words struck like cold wind. Tyler stepped between them. She's doing dinner, she's helping. Why can't you just say thank you? Jenna stood a little straighter behind him, arms folded. Carla turned off the burner. The silence filled the room like a slow leak of gas. Unseen, but dangerous. You're in my kitchen, she repeated, folding the towel over her shoulder. You don't come into someone's home, slam cabinets, and call them controlling. Tyler's nostrils flared. Don't argue with my wife in her house. The words hit harder than the cabinet. Carla didn't move, didn't speak. Her spine straightened, hands resting on the cool counter. Her eyes, once soft with caution, hardened into glass. In her house? She looked at Tyler, not the boy she'd raised, not the toddler she used to rock on that same kitchen floor during fevered nights, but a grown man puffed up with borrowed arrogance and imagined entitlement. The silence stretched so long Jenna shifted awkwardly, as if realizing she'd crossed a line too soon. Carla's voice, when it finally came, was soft, almost distant. What did you just say? Tyler blinked, his face flushing now. You heard me? Jenna looped her arm through his, smugness returning like a bad perfume. You said it right, babe. Carla looked down at the Dutch oven. Her reflection stared back. Older, yes, but not weaker. Not someone you could push around like a worn piece of furniture. She moved slowly, methodically, wiping her hands on a towel she didn't remember grabbing. Her heart wasn't racing, and that surprised her. It was slowing. I think I'll eat later, she said, turning toward the hallway. Tyler scoffed behind her. You're really gonna act like we're the problem? She didn't answer. She walked down the hall, past the framed photos of Tyler's childhood, his third-grade science fair, high school graduation, his first car, and opened the door to the hallway closet. She knelt and pulled out the fire-safe lockbox with both hands. Jenna's voice drifted faintly from the kitchen. She's being so dramatic. Carla walked to her bedroom without a word. She set the lockbox on her bed, spun the dial, and opened it with a soft click. Inside, carefully preserved in a clear folder, was the deed. Her name alone, ink sharp and unapologetic. She traced it with her finger, then reached deeper, and pulled out the business card she hadn't touched in years. Sean Pollock. Real estate law. South Congress office. The room felt colder now, quieter, as if the house itself was listening. Carla stared at the card for a long time, and then, from outside the door, Jenna's voice floated down the hallway. She's not going to do anything. She always folds. Carla's eyes narrowed. Carla sat on the edge of her bed, the house around her still humming faintly with evening noises, air vents sighing, a car door slamming down the street, faint laughter from the living room where Jenna's voice carried too easily. The lockbox sat open in front of her, the metallic smell of it sharp against the lavender fabric softener in her sheets. She slid the deed free from its plastic sleeve. The paper had a faint curl at the edges, the ink slightly faded, but her name, Carla Mae Jensen, was bold, permanent, and solitary. No co-signers, no husband, no son, just her. Her thumb traced the embossed seal, remembering the day she'd signed it 21 years ago. That office on South Lamar, the refinance meeting after her divorce from Ron. The banker, sweating through his tie, had told her she could wait until you remarry before locking in the new loan. Carla had laughed right in his face. "I'm done waiting for men to make things official," she told him. And she'd been right. Every payment had come out of her paycheck. Principal, interest, and all the years she spent eating discount cereal to make sure the mortgage cleared before the 15th. She'd framed the letter from the bank when it was finally paid off. It still hung downstairs in the hallway. Tyler used to point at it when he was a kid and say, "That means we're rich, right?" Now he acted like it meant nothing. Carla folded the deed back into its sleeve. The weight of it, paper thin yet heavy as a verdict, settled in her lap. Her son's words replayed. Her house. He really believed that, didn't he? Somewhere in that fog of pride and debt and bad advice, he'd convinced himself that her roof, her walls, her foundation had somehow passed to him. Maybe it had started small, a joke at Thanksgiving. Maybe he'd told Jenna something about, "Someday this'll be ours." And she, ever the opportunist, took "someday" to mean soon. The thought made Carla's stomach tighten. She opened her phone. The faint glow lit the silver in her hair, the lines at the corners of her mouth. Her contacts list felt foreign, names from years she'd long outgrown, but one stood out. Mara Vaughn. Carla typed, "Need to talk. Tomorrow morning?" The response came quick, as if Mara had been waiting for a reason. "My porch. 8 sharp. I'll bring coffee. Strong." Carla smiled despite the knot in her chest. Mara always knew when to leave out the questions. Outside her window, a light flicked on in the driveway. Tyler's SUV. She heard the rumble of the garage door and Jenna's laughter. Loud, theatrical, too sweet. Maybe she was on the phone again, telling someone about their house, her amazing mother-in-law who lets them stay rent-free. Carla could imagine the half-truth spreading like oil, slippery and hard to clean. Jenna was a master of insinuation. She didn't lie outright. She just twisted things until everyone nodded along. It wasn't impossible to picture her hinting that the house had been gifted, that Carla had promised it to them. Maybe even told the truth halfway. Carla had said once, years ago, "Someday it'll all be yours." She'd meant after I die. Carla's fingers tightened on the deed. She could almost hear Jenna's voice retelling it differently. "Carla said this place was ours. She doesn't even need it anymore." The thought turned her stomach. She rose, crossed the room, and opened the old walnut filing cabinet in the corner. organized chaos from decades of teaching and taxes. She rifled through manila folders until she found one labeled Home, Legal. Inside were records, mortgage payoffs, renovation invoices, permits, and, tucked neatly in the back, a cream business card with embossed blue lettering. Sean Pollock, Attorney at Law Real Estate and Property Disputes, South Congress. Carla turned it over, tracing the phone number with her thumb. She hadn't needed him in years, not since that nightmare with the mortgage company trying to slip predatory clauses into her refinance. Sean had been the one who'd caught it, who'd sat across from her with calm certainty and said, "They don't get to steal what you built." She exhaled slowly. Maybe she needed that certainty again. The house creaked. A normal sound, but tonight it felt different. Possessive. Protective. She walked to the window and looked out across the yard toward Mara's darkened porch. The oak branches shifted in the wind, their shadows crawling up her siding like ink lines on paper. Her name was still on that deed. Solid, unforgiving. But she could already feel the pull of something darker. How quickly the truth could get rewritten when people wanted to believe they were owed. Her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. "Hey Carla, heard you're thinking about downsizing? Jenna said you might gift them the house soon." How sweet. Carla stared at the screen, her pulse steady but cold. Then she set the phone down, opened her nightstand drawer, and pulled out a small notebook. On the first blank page, she wrote in neat, decisive letters, "Everything they think they own, they've already lost." She closed it, slid the deed inside, and turned off the light. By morning, Carla moved through the house like a ghost in her own home. No clinking dishes. No humming radio. Just the shuffle of papers and the faint zip of file folders sliding open. She'd woken before sunrise, brewed a pot of coffee, and spread her documents across the dining table. Tax returns, property insurance, mortgage statements, receipts from the kitchen remodel. The light was still gray, a pre-dawn hush that seemed to muffle even the hum of the refrigerator. Every page she stacked was a quiet reminder. This house had been earned, not inherited. Footsteps approached behind her. Tyler, barefoot, hair uncombed, scratching his jaw. "Morning," he said, voice sticky with sleep. Carla didn't look up. "Morning." He lingered by the doorway. "So, Jenna was thinking maybe we could repaint the living room, something lighter. She found this off-white online, sand dune, or whatever." Carla's pen stopped mid-note. "Paint?" she asked, without turning around. "Yeah." He sounded too casual. "Just freshen it up a bit. Maybe the guest room, too. You know, make it feel more like—" He hesitated, as if catching himself mid-sentence. "Like a new start," he finished. Carla stacked another folder. "The paint's fine." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Sure. Just think about it, okay?" When he left, she could hear the sound of Jenna's voice upstairs. Cheery. Performative. A tape measure snapped open, then the scrape of metal against window trim. Jenna was measuring the windows. Carla didn't need to ask why. She could picture it perfectly. New curtains, new color palette, a Pinterest board labeled "Our Home Makeover." Her chest tightened, but her face remained composed. She slid her paperwork into a brown accordion file. Each labeled tab neat and deliberate. Mortgage, title, taxes, insurance, renovations, maintenance. The physical proof of decades of labor. She shut the file with a soft click and tucked it into her canvas tote bag. The rest of the day unfolded in brittle politeness. Tyler worked from the couch, half listening to conference calls. Jenna clattered around in the kitchen, narrating her every move like a lifestyle vlogger, her homemade sauce, her perfect dinner for two. Carla didn't correct her when she used the wrong cutting board, didn't mention the scratch she left on the countertop. Silence was her weapon now. By late afternoon, the air outside shimmered with Texas heat. Carla waited until the sun began to dip, shadows stretching across the lawn, before slipping through the back door. The hinges didn't squeak. She'd oiled them last week. Mara was already there, leaning on the fence between their yards, her hair pulled into a messy bun, a glass of iced tea sweating in her hand. She didn't smile. "Got your text," Mara said softly. "You look like a woman about to bury someone in the garden." "Not yet," Carla said. They stood quietly for a moment, the cicadas screaming in the trees, the scent of cut grass sharp in the air. "What did they do now?" Mara finally asked. Carla glanced back at her kitchen window. Through the curtain she could see Jenna standing on a stool, holding a fabric swatch against the wall. Tyler stood behind her, hands on her hips. "They're redecorating," Carla said. "And they haven't asked if they can." Mara's eyebrows lifted. "So they think this place is already theirs." Mara's lips pressed together. "They're planning a takeover." It wasn't a question. Carla reached into her tote bag and pulled out the brown file folder. The edges were crisp, labeled in neat block letters. She handed it across the fence. Mara took it carefully, glancing at the label. Exit plan. Her expression shifted from curiosity to understanding. "You're really doing this?" Carla's gaze drifted to the kitchen window again. Jenna was laughing at something Tyler said, one hand tracing an invisible pattern across the wall. Her wall. "I'm not going to argue anymore," Carla said. "I'm just going to end it." Mara nodded, slipping the folder under her arm like contraband. "I'll keep this safe." Carla turned toward the fading light. "Don't keep it safe," she murmured. "Keep it ready." The wind picked up, tossing dry leaves across the yard. Somewhere inside the house, a door slammed. Mara looked over her shoulder. "That them?" Carla didn't answer. Her jaw set, her pulse steady. Because this time, the silence wasn't surrender. It was the sound of strategy. The next morning, Austin's sun was already brutal, flattening the color out of everything. Carla's sedan baked in the parking lot of a low brick office building off South Congress, the kind of place that looked ordinary enough to hide people's biggest mistakes. She sat there for a full minute before turning off the ignition, her fingers gripping the steering wheel until her pulse steadied. Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of lemon polish and coffee toner. The receptionist, young, polite, wearing the kind of neutral smile that came with expensive orthodontia, looked up as Carla entered. "Ms. Jensen, right? Mr. Pollock's expecting you." Carla nodded and followed the woman down a hall lined with framed photos of Austin landmarks, Zilker Park in bloom, the skyline at dusk. The hum of an air conditioner swallowed the sound of her footsteps. Sean Pollock rose when she entered. He looked older than she remembered, grayer at the temples, deeper lines at the eyes, but still had that calm, deliberate presence that had steadied her once before. "Carla Jensen," he said warmly, extending his hand. "It's been what, 15 years?" "About that," she said, shaking his hand. "You helped me keep my house then. I need to make sure I can do it again." He gestured for her to sit, slipping his glasses on. "I read your email. Let's go over it together." Carla opened her tote, pulled out the thick folder and slid it across his desk. The familiar smell of paper and ink filled the space between them. He leafed through the documents quickly but with precision. Title, deed, insurance records, tax payments. "You keep everything organized," he murmured. "I wish all my clients were this tidy." "It's the only thing in my life that's still tidy," she said. He gave a small, sympathetic smile. "So your son and his wife are currently residing in the property with you. No lease agreement? No rent payments?" "Correct." "Utilities in your name?" "All of them." He nodded. "And you've owned the property outright since 2004. No liens, No joint tenants, no co-owners. He turned a page. Not even a life estate designation. I paid for every inch, Carla said quietly. Twice over if you count the repairs. Sean leaned back, fingers steepled. Then you're safe, legally speaking. They have no claim of ownership, verbal or otherwise. No squatters' rights, no tenancy by implication, just guests who've overstayed their welcome. Carla exhaled, a sound between relief and restrained fury. Then I can evict them? With notice, Sean said, and if they refuse to leave after 30 days, you can escalate. We'll file an affidavit of ownership and proceed through Travis County's Justice Court. She stared at him for a long moment. It feels ugly, doing that to my own son. He didn't flinch. I've seen uglier things, Carla. Families tear each other apart over less than a roof. What's important is what's written. And your name is the only one written anywhere on that deed. He reached into his desk drawer, pulled out a short stack of cream-colored papers, and began typing. I'll draft the initial notice. You can decide when, or if, to deliver it. Carla watched his fingers move over the keyboard, steady and sure. The rhythmic clack was strangely soothing. She thought of the noise Jenna made every morning, her bright, performative laughter, and how hollow it suddenly felt, compared to this simple, methodical sound of protection being rebuilt. When he was done, he slid the pages across to her. You'll post this in their private living area. Bedroom door, ideally. Make a copy for your records. And Carla. She looked up. Don't tell them you've spoken to me. The less warning they have, the better. Her hand trembled slightly as she took the papers. You've done this before, haven't you? He gave her a wry half-smile. More times than I care to count. Entitlement runs deep, but paper doesn't lie. She folded the notice, placed it in the manila envelope, and slid it into her purse. The sound of the clasp snapping shut was quiet but final. When she rose to leave, Sean stood as well. You did the hard part already, coming in. Now you just have to follow through. Carla met his gaze, steady. When the time's right, I will. The sun hit her like a wall when she stepped outside. Heat shimmered off the asphalt, and somewhere a mockingbird screeched in the oak trees that lined the lot. She slipped her sunglasses on, but the brightness still burned. She opened her car door and sat for a long time before starting the engine, the envelope heavy in her purse like an unspoken decision. The smell of old paper mixed with the faint scent of leather and dust. Across the street, she noticed a real estate sign leaning against a storefront. We buy homes fast. Someone had scrawled a phone number in marker under it. Carla's lips curved faintly. Not this one, she whispered. Then she put the car in gear and pulled away. The envelope pressed against her side like a secret too sharp to share. Carla smelled the party before she heard it. Cheap wine, cologne, the heavy sweetness of store-bought frosting. She was upstairs reading when the bass line thudded through the floorboards, shaking the lamp beside her bed. Voices rose and fell in laughter, overlapping, careless. She set the book down and looked at the clock. 9:12 p.m. No one had asked her if they could have people over. She walked to the landing, leaned against the banister, and peered down into the living room. Jenna was center stage, framed in the warm glow of the new floor lamp she'd brought home last week without asking. Her voice rose above the chatter. Yeah, Tyler's mom's letting us stay while we remodel. Isn't she amazing? Honestly, it's basically ours now. Laughter rippled through the small crowd. Someone raised a glass. Cheers to that. Carla didn't move. She watched Jenna's reflection in the glass of the framed family photo on the wall, Jenna's bright blonde hair catching the light, Tyler's arm draped lazily around her shoulders. Her son smiled that same half-cocky grin he used to wear in high school when he thought rules didn't apply to him. The music pulsed louder. Someone turned up the volume, Another person dropped a drink. Sticky liquid spread across the hardwood she'd refinished with her own hands. Carla inhaled deeply through her nose and turned back toward her bedroom. Not tonight, she told herself. Not a single word. She closed her door, but she didn't sleep. Downstairs, laughter rose again. The bass thumped through the walls like a slow heartbeat. Carla stared at the ceiling until the noise blurred into something distant and cold, like waves hitting a shore she no longer cared to visit. By morning, the house was silent again. The smell of beer and perfume lingered, souring in the Texas heat. Solo cups cluttered her counter. One of her good serving bowls was chipped. Carla's movements were methodical. She brewed coffee, poured it black, took the manila envelope from her purse and set it on the table. The documents Sean had typed up yesterday looked almost gentle in the morning light. Clean margins, crisp paper, legal calm. She signed the bottom of the notice, her pen steady. Folded it, walked down the hall. Tyler and Jenna's bedroom door was closed. The faint sound of snoring came from inside. She taped the notice at eye level, straight, even. Then she pressed it flat against the wood for good measure. The sound of her palm against the paper made her heart pound once, sharp and final. She turned and walked away. By noon, Tyler's voice erupted from the hallway. "Are you kidding me?" Carla didn't look up from her seat at the kitchen table. She was reading the morning paper, her coffee untouched beside her. Tyler stormed in, the notice clutched in his hand like a burning flag. "What the hell is this?" "It's notice," Carla said evenly. 30 days. Notice for what? "For you and Jenna to move out." Jenna appeared behind him, mascara smudged, wearing one of Carla's old robes. Her lip trembled. "You can't just kick us out. We live here." Carla folded the paper, set it aside. "No, Jenna, you stay here. That's different." Tyler's face flushed red. "You can't do this, Mom. You can't just—" "I can." Carla's tone never rose. "I just did." He slammed the notice on the table. "You think you can pull this legal crap on me? I'll sue you for harassment, for whatever this is." "Try," she said quietly. "You'll lose." The calm in her voice seemed to shake him more than shouting ever could. Tyler blinked, chest heaving. Jenna's lower lip quivered. "You've lost your mind," he said finally. Carla stood, smoothing her blouse, the picture of composure. "No. I found it." Jenna began to cry then, soft at first, then louder, her voice echoing off the walls. She sank onto the stairs, covering her face. "I knew she'd do this," she wailed. "She's always hated me." Carla paused at the foot of the stairs, looking down at the young woman who had turned her son against her. "I don't hate you," she said. "I just don't owe you." Tyler moved to comfort his wife, wrapping an arm around her. "We'll see about this," he muttered. Carla walked past them toward the back door, sunlight cutting a gold line across her face. Outside, the air was hot and heavy with the smell of cut grass. She could hear Jenna sobbing through the open window, Tyler's muffled curses. She pulled her phone from her pocket and opened her text thread with Mara. "Posted it," she typed. 30 days start now." The reply came within seconds. "About damn time." Carla smiled faintly and slipped the phone back into her purse. The breeze shifted, carrying the faint echo of a slammed cabinet door. Her fingers tightened on the purse strap, but this time she didn't flinch. The letter arrived on a Thursday, thick, printed on cheap legal paper, folded twice inside a plain white envelope. Carla found it on the kitchen counter between the morning mail and a half-eaten banana that wasn't hers. Her name was misspelled on the address line. That was her first clue. She slid it open with a butter knife, read the first sentence, and felt the corner of her mouth twitch. "This letter serves as formal notification that your recent behavior constitutes emotional harassment and undue stress toward tenants Tyler and Jenna Jensen." Tenants. She read the word twice, then laughed once, quiet and sharp. Jenna's fingerprints were all over the phrasing. Dramatic, vague, self-pitying. She'd probably found a free template online, filled in their names, and hit print with a flourish. Carla set the letter on the table, poured herself another cup of coffee, and snapped a photo of it. Within minutes, she'd forwarded it to Sean with a short message. Received this masterpiece today. Thoughts? The reply came within an hour. Harmless, no legal standing. Print and file it. Don't engage. Carla did exactly that, slipped it into a folder labeled Noise, and went on with her day. But the noise didn't stop. It just changed shape. That night, Mara texted her a screenshot. It was Jenna's social media post. A filtered selfie of her on the front porch, chin tilted in performative sadness. The caption read, "Sometimes family can be the cruelest landlords. Cause tough times. New beginnings." Within hours, the comments rolled in. "Stay strong, girl. You deserve better. Karma will come for her." Mara's response was already visible at the bottom of the thread. "You don't own that home, sweetheart." Carla couldn't help the small, delighted sound that escaped her throat. The next morning, she woke to find Tyler pacing in the kitchen, jaw tight, phone in hand. "You need to tell Mara to stop harassing Jenna online," he said. Carla took her time pouring coffee. "I don't control what my neighbor posts. She's making us look stupid." Carla stirred in a little sugar, looked him dead in the eye. "You're managing that fine on your own." The mug clinked softly against the counter when she set it down. Tyler muttered something under his breath and stormed off, the slam of the hallway door making the house rattle. By the weekend, the tension had become its own living thing, thick, restless, coiled in the air like static before a storm. Carla kept to herself. She cooked for one, read at the dining table, slept with her phone beside her. The 30-day countdown hung invisible but heavy between them. Then, on Sunday night, she woke to the sound of pounding. 3 sharp bangs against her bedroom door. She sat up instantly. "Mom!" Tyler's voice barked from the hall, low and furious. "Open the door." She glanced at the clock, 2:47 a.m. "Mom!" Carla rose, robe tied tight, every nerve awake. She didn't move closer to the door. "You will not raise your voice in my house," she said evenly. "You think you can threaten us, humiliate us online, and just sleep like nothing's happening? Go back to bed, Tyler. Don't tell me what to do." The wood shuddered under his fist. Jenna's voice came faintly from the other side, pleading, tearful. "Tyler, stop. Please." Carla's pulse was steady, but her voice turned cold as glass. "One more threat, and I call the cops." Silence. Then, slowly. His breathing faded down the hall. A door slammed again. Carla exhaled, only then realizing she'd been holding her breath. She walked to her dresser, opened the top drawer, and retrieved a small brass key from the back. The hardware store sticker still clung to it from when she'd bought the lock weeks ago, before she'd even known she'd need it. She installed it that night. By morning, her bedroom door clicked shut with a new, solid sound, a sound that didn't ask for permission. Later, as the first light crept over the horizon, she stood in her doorway and looked down the quiet hall. Tyler's shoes were tossed in the corner, Jenna's mug abandoned on the counter. The house smelled faintly of burnt toast and resentment. Carla locked the door behind her, one clean turn of the key, and smiled faintly at the click. Inside that small sound was everything she'd built. Safety, certainty, and ownership no one could contest. She poured herself coffee, opened the window, and let the cool air brush against her face. Then her phone buzzed on the counter. A message from an unknown number again. "Careful, Carla. You're not as untouchable as you think." She read it twice, the calm never leaving her eyes. Then she deleted it. By Monday morning, Carla had traded fear for order. She sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, a mug of coffee cooling beside her. The glow of the screen reflected off her glasses as she typed. Measured, calm, deliberate. The document was titled House Rules, effective immediately. Each line was simple, non-negotiable. No guests without prior approval, no renovations, redecorating, or home improvement projects of any kind. No use of shared groceries or supplies, no entering Carla Jensen's private spaces, bedroom, office, or backyard, without permission. Noise to remain at respectful levels after 9 p.m. She printed 2 copies, the hum of the printer steady and satisfying. The paper fed out crisp and warm, smelling faintly of ink and finality. She signed both at the bottom. Carla Mae Jensen, owner. The title still made her smile. At 8:30 sharp, Jenna breezed in from the hallway, wrapped in a fluffy robe, holding her phone like a prop. "Oh, hey," she said, overly bright. "Tyler said you were making waffles." "No," Carla replied without looking up. "I was making boundaries." Jenna blinked. "Sorry?" Carla slid the sheet across the table. "New house rules. Read them carefully." Jenna took the paper, confusion spreading across her face as her eyes scanned the lines. Her lips parted slightly. "You're kidding." "I'm not." "This is ridiculous," Jenna said, a laugh catching in her throat. "We're not your tenants." Carla met her gaze, calm as ever. "Exactly. That's why you're leaving." For a second, Jenna's face froze, something between disbelief and fury. Then she slammed the paper down, the pages fluttering across the table like startled birds. "You can't treat us like this." "I already am." "You think this makes you powerful?" Jenna's voice rose, brittle with anger. "It just makes you pathetic." Carla leaned back in her chair, hands folded neatly in her lap. "It makes me organized." Jenna turned on her heel and stalked down the hallway, calling for Tyler. A moment later, his heavy footsteps followed, thudding toward the kitchen. "Mom," he started, voice already defensive. "What is this?" "Jenna says you're handing out rule sheets now?" Carla stood, walked to the counter, and poured herself another cup of coffee. The ceramic clinked gently against the carafe. "House expectations. Written clarity prevents arguments." "Arguments?" he said, incredulous. "You're creating arguments." She sipped her coffee. "Only for those who don't like the truth in writing." Tyler dragged a hand through his hair. "You're making this impossible." "Then it's working." He looked at her for a long second, eyes red, jaw twitching, then turned and stomped back down the hall. The bedroom door slammed hard enough to shake a picture frame loose on the wall. The silence that followed was almost musical. For 3 days, the house existed in uneasy truce. Tyler moved like a ghost, barely speaking, his footsteps heavy with sulk. Jenna's online pity parade slowed but didn't stop. Carla saw her in the backyard taking long, melodramatic calls about toxic family dynamics. Carla ignored her. She'd stopped explaining herself to people who couldn't listen. On Thursday evening, a knock came at the back door. Mara stood there, holding a bottle of wine and her speaker tucked under one arm. "Emergency morale visit," she declared, pushing her way in. "I'm fine," Carla said, though her tone betrayed the wear. "Sure you are," Mara replied, uncorking the bottle with practiced ease. "But I brought a playlist called Victory Vibes, and I'm not leaving until you smile." They sat at the dining table, the one place still entirely Carla's, the room lit by the soft orange glow of sunset bleeding through the blinds. Mara poured 2 glasses and pressed play. Fleetwood Mac filled the kitchen, steady, defiant. "God, I've missed this," Carla admitted, a laugh catching her off guard. "There it is," Mara said, grinning. "Sound of a woman who's not taking any more crap." Carla laughed again, louder this time until her cheeks hurt. It had been weeks since her voice had sounded like that, unburdened, free. For the first time, the house didn't feel haunted by tension. It felt alive again, hers again. As the song shifted, Mara raised her glass. To walls that stand firm, and doors that lock from the inside. Carla clinked her glass against Mara's, and to people who finally learn what no sounds like. The two women drank as twilight deepened, laughter spilling into the warm air. But just as the last song faded, a shadow moved past the front window. Mara set her glass down. "You expecting someone?" Carla shook her head slowly. Outside, a car engine idled, low, steady, waiting. The engine outside finally cut off, but Carla didn't move. Through the curtains, she could see the faint glow of Tyler's headlights fade, leaving only the sound of crickets and the tick of the kitchen clock. Mara followed her gaze, eyes narrowing. "Is he waiting for you to invite him in?" she asked. Carla's lips pressed into a thin smile. "He can wait all night." By morning, she was done waiting. At sunrise, the printer hummed again. Legal templates, notarized seals, certified copies. Carla's kitchen looked more like a clerk's office than a home. She triple-checked every line. Owner, Carla Mae Jensen. Occupants to vacate within 30 days. Non-compliance will result in legal eviction. She slid the completed documents into a bright yellow envelope, the color of warning signs. Mara arrived with coffee and a quiet determination. "It's happening, huh?" Carla nodded, sealing the flap. "It's past happening. It's done." By late afternoon, the sound of Tyler's truck rattled the driveway again. Jenna trailed behind him, sunglasses hiding swollen eyes, her hand looped dramatically through his arm. They didn't knock this time. They just walked in. Carla stood at the dining table, calm and waiting. Tyler set his jaw, voice clipped. "We've been talking. Jenna and I want to stay. Just for a few months. We'll pay rent." Carla's eyebrows lifted, amused. "You'll pay rent." "Yes," he said quickly, taking her tone as consideration. "Fair market, even. You can write up an agreement. Whatever makes you feel comfortable." "It's not about comfort," she said softly. "It's about boundaries. You don't pay rent to your mother in a house you plan to steal." "Steal?" he snapped, stepping forward. "Transfer, claim, rebrand, choose your word." Jenna's voice cracked as she spoke. "We're not trying to take your house, Carla. We're just trying to start a family. This is where we wanted to do it." Carla turned toward her slowly, eyes steady. "Then you'll start it somewhere else." The words landed like a slammed door. Jenna's lower lip trembled and she sank into a chair, tears already spilling. "You're throwing your son out on the street. And his wife. And your future grandchild." "Don't weaponize a maybe," Carla said. "It's not becoming." Tyler's face hardened. "We'll clean up. We'll make the place better than when we moved in." She shook her head. "Too late for that. You've already stained what mattered." He glared at her, but for the first time, his anger faltered. He looked tired, cornered. Carla could see it. The panic behind his defiance. "I'm giving you a deadline," she said evenly. "You'll be out by the 1st of next month. If you're not, the sheriff will be involved." Tyler's voice dropped, quiet and dangerous. "You'd really do that to me?" "Yes," she said, "because I already did everything else." Jenna stood abruptly, shoving her chair back. "This isn't over." "I never said it was," Carla replied. "But your time here is." When they finally stormed out, the front door shuddered in its frame. Mara appeared from the hallway, having listened in silence. "You held the line," she said softly. "I did more than that." Carla turned to the stack of folded boxes near the wall. "I'm giving them a head start." The two women worked quietly through the evening, folding, labeling, sorting. Carla's movements were mechanical but purposeful. every taped seam a small reclamation. By the time the moon climbed above the oak tree, half the upstairs was packed. Tyler's sneakers, Jenna's makeup drawer, the framed engagement photo that had hung, without permission, on Carla's hallway wall. Mara held it up. Trash or keep? Carla hesitated, then smiled. Garage sale. They both laughed, low and tired but real. When Mara finally left, the house felt different again. Lighter. The rooms echoed faintly as if preparing for silence. Carla poured herself a nightcap and stood by the window. Across the driveway, Tyler's car was gone. But the porch light was still on, a small glowing reminder that this was her house, her rules, her victory. She opened her phone and sent a single text to Sean. Documents delivered. Deadline set. Thank you. Then she poured the last of her drink into the sink, rinsed the glass, and turned off the light. The house exhaled with her. She walked down the hall toward her locked bedroom, her steps slow, steady. But as she reached for the doorknob, something crunched underfoot. A nail. A long one. Shiny. Fresh. Her gaze snapped up. The doorframe had been tampered with, slightly split, as if pried open and resealed. Her fingers tightened around the frame. The Travis County Recorder's office was colder than Carla remembered, its fluorescent lights humming with bureaucratic indifference. She clutched her purse tight as she stepped through the metal detector, her heels echoing on the linoleum floor. The place smelled faintly of paper dust, old toner, and resignation. Lila Barnes looked up from her desk the moment Carla approached. Her hair was shorter now, steel gray and sharp around her face. But her eyes were the same, steady, intelligent, cutting through nonsense like a blade. Carla Jensen, Lila said, standing to greet her. Haven't seen you since your PTA president days. Carla managed a thin smile. Feels like another lifetime. It was, Lila said knowingly. What brings you here? Not many folks visit in person anymore. Everything's online now. That's what worries me, Carla replied, lowering her voice. I need to verify my property record, my home in South Austin. I think something's been filed without my knowledge. Lila's brows knit together. You think someone touched your deed? I think my son, or his wife, might have tried. Lila didn't ask more. She simply turned to her computer, long nails tapping quickly against the keyboard. Address? Carla recited it. Each number tasted bitter on her tongue. Lila scrolled, squinted, then frowned. Well, this is interesting. Carla's pulse ticked upward. What? Lila leaned closer to the monitor. There's a new record dated 3 weeks ago. A quitclaim deed. Carla felt her throat close. That's impossible. Lila turned the screen slightly so Carla could see. There it was. Her property listed again, only this time the names had multiplied. Owner, Carla Mae Jensen and Jenna Lee Jensen. The world went quiet. For a moment, all Carla could hear was her own heartbeat. Steady, incredulous, furious. Her name, her life's work, paired beside the woman who'd invaded her home like mold under paint. Who filed it? She asked, though she already knew. Lila clicked deeper into the record. Says it was uploaded by a user named Brandon W. Lee, online filing account. Carla blinked, trying to place the name. Lila continued, voice low. He's one of those notary for hire types, people who will stamp anything for a Venmo fee. She sighed. He's filed a dozen shady transfers this month alone. Carla's jaw tightened. So it's fake. Absolutely, Lila confirmed. But it's in the system, which means you'll need legal firepower to get it voided. Carla inhaled sharply through her nose, every nerve suddenly awake. How long does that take? Depends on how fast your lawyer moves. Lila printed a copy and slid it across the counter. The paper was still warm, the seal embossed like a fresh bruise. And Carla? Yes? Don't let them know you found this. Not yet. Carla met her gaze. They'll know soon enough. By afternoon, Sean Pollock's office door closed with a solid click behind her. He scanned the document once, then again. Slower, more deliberate the second time. His expression didn't change, but the muscle in his jaw flexed once. This is forgery, he said finally, plain and simple. Can they get away with it? He looked up at her. Not if I have anything to say about it. He picked up his phone. I'll contact the county immediately and file a petition to void. We'll also submit an affidavit of fraud. Carla sat across from him, back straight, hands folded tightly in her lap. Do they go to jail for something like this? Sean paused. If we can prove intent, yes. It's criminal. Intent, Carla echoed softly, eyes narrowing. Trust me, they meant every bit of it. He nodded once, already dialing. Then let's make sure this doesn't touch your title. Carla listened to him speak in that calm, controlled legal rhythm, but her thoughts drifted elsewhere, to her kitchen, her walls, her name. The image of that digital line and Jenna Lee Jensen burned behind her eyes. When Sean hung up, he said, You should also file a police report. Paper trail is your best friend now. I'll do it this afternoon. And Carla... He hesitated. Don't go home alone tonight. She gave him a look that could slice through glass. I've been alone in that house longer than they've been alive. He smiled faintly, but there was worry in his eyes. Be careful anyway. The police station was a fluorescent maze of waiting chairs and weary officers. Carla filed her report calmly, efficiently, her voice steady even when she said Jenna's name aloud. The officer at the desk, a young woman barely out of academy training, looked at her with quiet sympathy as she signed the final form. Don't worry, ma'am. Once legal gets involved, this kind of fraud doesn't hold up. I'm not worried, Carla said, sliding the pen across the counter. I'm angry. Outside, the sun was setting behind the Austin skyline, turning the air gold and pink. Carla walked to her car, the document folder under her arm, each step deliberate. When she reached her car, she stopped short. A single sheet of paper was tucked under her windshield wiper. Her stomach tightened as she unfolded it. Typed in bold black ink were 5 words. You can't own forever, Carla. The wind lifted the paper slightly, teasing it from her fingers. She let it go. The summons came on a humid Wednesday morning, delivered by a uniformed deputy who looked as if he'd rather be anywhere else. Carla accepted the envelope with steady hands, thanked him politely, and waited until his cruiser pulled away before opening it. The words inside weren't a surprise. Hearing scheduled. Travis County Small Claims Court. Subject: ownership dispute. Forged filing. Property claim. Carla exhaled once. Long, slow, controlled. She'd been ready for this since the day she'd seen her name paired with Jenna's. That night, she called Sean. I want to make sure this sticks, she told him. He chuckled softly. Carla, the only thing that's going to stick is your victory. Just bring everything we've organized. The originals, the proof of payments, the affidavit from Lila. The judge will see through them in minutes. And them? Let them talk, he said. Desperation always cross-examines itself. The courtroom was smaller than Carla expected, less cinematic, more suffocating. Pale walls, wood benches polished by nervous hands. A faint smell of dust and coffee lingered in the air. Jenna sat beside Tyler at the petitioner's table, dressed in a floral dress too cheerful for the occasion. Her mascara was already smudging. She'd clearly been crying before the judge even entered. Tyler looked worse. Creased suit, jaw clenched, eyes avoiding his mother's. Sean sat beside Carla, calm as a man reading a weather report. His briefcase rested neatly on the table, the documents stacked like ammunition. The bailiff called the case. Travis County versus Jensen, property ownership dispute, case number 2381C. The judge, a lean man with sharp eyes and little patience for theatrics, took his seat. All right, let's get to it. Mrs. Jensen, you filed to have a fraudulent deed voided? Sean stood. Yes, Your Honor. My client, Carla Mae Jensen, is the sole legal owner of the property in question. A forged quitclaim was filed by unauthorized parties. The judge's gaze shifted to Jenna and Tyler. You're the unauthorized parties, I take it? Jenna dabbed at her eyes. It's not that simple, she said, voice trembling. Carla, Mrs. Jensen, she promised us the house. She told us we could stay, that it would be ours one day. Carla didn't flinch. The judge raised an eyebrow. Did you receive any written statement or recorded promise to that effect? Jenna shook her head quickly. No, but she said it so many times. That's hearsay, the judge interrupted. Jenna's eyes widened. But she meant it. The judge sighed, already unimpressed. Intent isn't ownership, Mrs. Jensen. Documents are. Carla leaned forward slightly. May I? The judge nodded. She opened her folder and began laying each page on the table in perfect order. Title deed, mortgage payoff, tax records, notarized statements, insurance proofs, and the certified letter from Lila confirming the forgery. The soft thud of each page landing on the wood echoed through the quiet courtroom like a heartbeat. When she was done, she folded her hands. My name's been on that house for 31 years. No one else's. I built it, paid for it, repaired it, and defended it. I won't have my son or anyone else try to rewrite that. For a long moment, no one spoke. Even the air seemed to pause. The judge flipped through the documents, expression unreadable. Finally, he set them down and looked up. I've seen enough. Jenna gasped. Wait, Your Honor? He held up a hand. Mrs. Jensen's ownership stands. The forged quitclaim is void. Any further interference will result in criminal charges. Tyler's shoulders sagged. His face flushed deep red. Jenna covered her face with her hands, sobbing so loudly the bailiff shifted uncomfortably. You've ruined us, she cried. Carla didn't move. No, Jenna. You did that when you thought lies could hold up in court? The judge gathered his papers. Case closed. The gavel hit wood, a sound that felt like a clean exhale after months of holding her breath. Outside, sunlight flooded the courthouse steps. Carla stood for a long moment before descending, the heat wrapping around her like a slow victory. Sean tucked the case file under his arm. Congratulations, he said simply. You're officially bulletproof. Carla smiled faintly. You make it sound like this is over. Isn't it? She glanced toward the parking lot. Across the street, Jenna sat in their SUV, her face hidden behind the visor, phone pressed to her ear. Tyler was nowhere in sight. No, Carla said quietly. Not yet. Sean followed her gaze. Want me to stick around? Carla shook her head. They've already lost in court. Now I just want to see how they lose at home. That night, when she returned to her driveway, her porch light was out, and the doormat, the one that once said, "Welcome to our home," was gone. In its place was a new one, plain black, stamped in bold white letters, "Not yours." The house was silent when Carla pushed open the front door, but it wasn't the kind of silence she recognized. This one felt hollow, echoing, stripped. Her heel stuck briefly to something tacky on the entryway floor. Wine, red, dried into the hardwood. Carla stepped forward slowly, eyes scanning the space she'd poured 30 years of her life into. The air carried the faint scent of bleach and cigarette smoke, an odd combination that made her stomach tighten. The living room was chaos. One wall had a hole punched clean through the drywall, jagged as a wound. The carpet was stained with what looked like spilled coffee, or maybe something worse. Her hand found the doorframe, steadying herself. She moved from room to room in measured silence, counting the damage like a surgeon cataloging injuries. The guest room mattress, gone. A window cracked near the latch. Her antique lamp smashed beside the recliner. And in her office, where she'd once graded essays and signed mortgage checks, the bookshelf was stripped bare. The framed bank letter from the day she'd paid off the house was missing. She didn't cry. She just breathed in, slow and steady, until her pulse evened out. Then she took out her phone and dialed. "Sean," she said when he answered. "Bring your camera." An hour later, Sean arrived, sleeves rolled up, legal pad in hand. He took one look around and muttered a quiet curse. Then, businesslike, he began snapping photos. "Intentional damage," he said flatly, kneeling to capture the gouges in the wall trim. "This isn't wear and tear. This is retaliation." Carla folded her arms. "That's what it feels like." Mara appeared at the back door with a folder tucked under her arm. "I brought what you asked for." Inside were old photographs, holiday dinners, birthday parties, the house before Tyler had ever touched a tool or a temper tantrum. Carla spread them across the dining table beside Sean's notepad. "Before and after," Mara said softly, pointing to a picture of the same living room wall, once hung with Christmas lights and her late husband's navy photo. Carla's throat tightened. They ruined something they never helped build. Sean glanced up, his tone steady but edged. "We'll make them pay for every nail, every hole, every lie. Trust me." He photographed everything: the scorched patch of countertop, the cracked tile in the bathroom, the missing cabinet handles. Each click of the camera was another nail in their legal coffin. When he was done, he said, "I'll file 2 claims, one for malicious property damage, one for defamation. They've been active online, haven't they?" Carla tilted her phone so he could see. Jenna's face filled the screen, wide eyes, tearful filter, her voice trembling just enough to sound authentic. "They forced us out of our home," Jenna said into the camera. "We gave everything to that place, and she destroyed our family. But karma's coming for her." The post had thousands of views. The caption read, "Some people confuse ownership with love." Carla scrolled to the comments. Sympathy, outrage, hashtags. Then she opened her text app, attached the link, and sent it to Sean with one word: evidence. Mara crossed her arms, disgusted. "They're still performing." Carla's voice was low even. "They always were." By evening, Sean was gone, files secured, case numbers already drafted. Carla stood by the bay window with Mara beside her, watching the street as the sun dipped low. A small blue sedan pulled into the curb, Emily's car. Carla frowned. Emily was one of Jenna's friends, the one who used to tag along for wine nights and photo shoots. She got out, clutching something small in her hand. "Evening, Mrs. Jensen," Emily said nervously when Carla opened the door. I thought I should give this back." In her palm lay the brass spare key, the one Carla had been searching for since the eviction. Carla took it, the metal cold against her skin. "Where did you get this?" Emily swallowed. "Jenna gave it to me, said to hold on to it in case she needed to get back in later." Mara's eyes hardened. "Needed to get back in?" Emily nodded, guilt flashing across her face. "I'm sorry, I didn't know it had gone this far." Carla closed her fingers around the key. "You did the right thing." Emily hesitated. "She's angry, Mrs. Jensen. She keeps saying you don't deserve that house, that she's not done." Carla's tone was measured steel. "She's right about one thing. She's not done losing." Emily's eyes widened, and she nodded before retreating quickly to her car. Carla shut the door and turned the deadbolt, the sound echoing through the quiet house. Mara exhaled beside her. "You really think they'll try something else?" Carla's gaze shifted toward the upstairs window where the shadows pooled. I think people who've already lost everything tend to make bad decisions. The key glinted faintly in her hand. She set it on the kitchen counter beside the police report. Then, from somewhere outside, a car door slammed. Carla froze. Mara stepped to the window, parting the curtain just enough. Carla, that's Tyler's truck. The moving trucks came at dawn. Two of them, white with faded blue lettering, idling in the driveway like quiet executioners. Carla stood on the porch in her pressed linen shirt and denim jeans, coffee in hand, the air thick with the promise of finality. The movers, 3 men in matching polos, didn't ask questions. They had the list, the authorization papers, and a client who didn't flinch when she said, "Everything in the guest room and the upstairs closet. Box it all. Don't scratch the floors." Inside, the air still smelled faintly of Jenna's perfume, a sugary vanilla that now seemed offensive. Carla moved through the house like a museum guide closing an exhibit. Jenna and Tyler stood at the bottom of the stairs, stunned. Jenna's hair was unbrushed, her eyes swollen. Tyler's t-shirt was wrinkled, his jaw tight with exhaustion. "You hired movers?" he asked, voice low but shaking. "Yes," Carla said simply, "to move you out." "You can't just—" "I can," she interrupted, "and I am." The thump of boxes against the hardwood filled the silence. One mover passed by carrying a pile of Jenna's framed motivational prints, "Good vibes only" and "Manifest magic." Carla almost laughed at the irony. Jenna finally spoke, her voice cracking. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" Carla turned to her, calm but razor-edged. "Enjoying? No. Finishing? Yes." Jenna's hands trembled as she pointed toward the kitchen. "You don't get to just erase us from your life like this." "I'm not erasing you," Carla said. "You're doing that yourselves." From outside came the squeak of the dolly wheels and the slam of the truck door. One mover shouted, "Bedroom's next." Jenna flinched. "Don't touch our things," she snapped, her voice brittle. Carla folded her arms. "Everything's already touched, Jenna. Every wall, every lie, every last chance." Tyler ran a hand over his face. He looked older than his 35 years now, drained, broken by the weight of consequences he still refused to name. "Mom," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "Please, I know we've messed up, but don't do this. We can fix it." She studied him for a moment, searching for even a trace of the boy she'd raised, the one who used to bring her wildflowers from the yard, the one who once said, "You're my safe place, Mom." But that boy was gone. "Tyler," she said softly, "this is the fixing." His eyes flickered, hurt, realization, then anger. "You've changed." "I had to," she said. "You never did." Outside, the movers kept working, efficient and merciless. Jenna turned away, muttering curses under her breath as she yanked open drawers, gathering jewelry and scattered cosmetics. "This house smells disgusting," she spat suddenly, "like that stupid bakery down the street." Carla smiled faintly. "That bakery's been here longer than you have." Jenna's glare could have cut glass. Carla didn't look away. "And it'll be here long after you're gone." The movers rolled another cart of boxes past them, each one labeled in Carla's neat handwriting. "Jenna Tyler, storage, do not return." By noon, the house was lighter. Physically, spiritually, karmically. The echo of footsteps sounded cleaner. Carla walked through each room as the men finished, signing the forms with a steady hand. "Where do you want the key drop?" one of the movers asked. She gestured toward the counter. "Leave them there. I'm having the locks changed this afternoon." Tyler's head snapped up. "You can't—" "Yes," Carla said, her patience thinning. "I can. I already scheduled it." He looked like he wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. He just stood there, shoulders slumped, as the movers closed the truck doors with a final, echoing slam. Outside, across the street, Mara stood leaning against her fence, sunglasses on, holding a chilled bottle of champagne. When Carla glanced up, Mara raised the bottle in salute, grinning. Carla couldn't help it. A small, weary smile tugged at her mouth. Jenna shot Mara a glare that could have scorched asphalt. "She's celebrating this?" "She's celebrating peace," Carla said. "Something you should try." The movers drove off, leaving tire tracks on the sun-baked pavement. Tyler and Jenna stood on the curb, surrounded by cardboard boxes and a mountain of denial. Carla turned back toward her front door. "Goodbye, Tyler," she said softly. He didn't answer. She stepped inside, closed the door, and leaned against it for a long moment, listening to the muffled sound of the truck's engine fading down the street. Then she crossed to the counter, gathered the keys the movers had left, and dropped them into a small paper bag marked Locksmith. 3 p.m. By evening, new locks gleamed on every door. Fresh brass. No fingerprints but her own. When the locksmith left, Carla stood in the quiet, breathing in the scent of sawdust and oil. Then she reached into her cupboard, pulled out a lavender candle, and set it on the mantel. As the flame flickered to life, the house seemed to exhale with her, warm, reclaimed, alive again. She whispered, almost to herself, "Mine." Outside, the dusk settled over South Austin in a wash of gold and purple. But from the curb, half hidden by the shadow of the oak tree, a figure still stood watching. The candle flame shivered. The envelope arrived 2 days after the movers left. Cream paper, heavy stock, the kind that tried too hard to look important. Carla turned it over twice before slicing it open with a butter knife. Inside was a single page, a settlement offer, the total at the bottom, $4,700. Barely enough to cover the drywall repairs, let alone the destruction of 30 years of peace. Carla set the page down, the corner of her mouth twitching in disbelief. "Weak," she muttered. She called Sean. He answered on the second ring, sounding as though he'd already been waiting for her. "Got the offer?" "Got it," she said. "And I'm insulted." "I figured you would be." Papers rustled on his end. "I ran the final estimate last night. Documented damage, cleaning, replacement value, plus defamation penalties. Total comes to $18,400. Carla leaned back in her chair. "Then they pay every penny. Or we go to trial." "Exactly what I hoped you'd say," Sean replied, amusement in his tone. "I'll call their attorney. Expect fireworks." She smiled faintly. "Good. I like fireworks." By Friday morning, the house smelled like cinnamon and lemon oil. Carla had spent the previous evening scrubbing every last trace of them from her home. Jenna's perfume, Tyler's aftershave, the lingering resentment that clung like humidity. She opened the curtains wide and let the Texas sun flood in, bright and unforgiving. At 10 sharp, her phone buzzed. "Jenna Jensen has agreed to settle at full amount. No apology, no explanation, just legal compliance, typed in sterile font." Carla exhaled, slow and steady. Of course she did. Later that afternoon, a knock came at the door. Not hard, not tentative, just 3 simple raps. Tyler stood on the porch, head down, holding a plain white envelope. The faint scrape of gravel behind him revealed Mara's presence across the street, her figure half hidden behind the fence, observing like a silent witness. "Mom," he said quietly. "Carla," she corrected. He hesitated, then extended the envelope. "It's all there. 18-4. She didn't reach for it right away. "You know, when you were a kid, you used to leave your allowance on this porch when you got in trouble. Said it was your way of paying off bad behavior." He managed a weak smile. Guess some things don't change. They do, she said. That's the problem. You didn't. He swallowed, eyes dropping again. Jenna wanted me to say sorry. Carla tilted her head. And are you sorry? I'm sorry it ended like this, he murmured. That's not the same thing. Silence stretched between them, thick, familiar, full of everything they'd never said. Then, carefully, she reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out a pair of latex gloves. Tyler blinked. You're serious? I'm done getting fingerprints on things that aren't mine. She slipped them on and took the envelope, her movements slow and deliberate. The paper crinkled faintly as she turned it over in her hands, inspecting the check through the thin fold. Thank you, she said, tone flat but polite. He nodded once, awkwardly. You'll cash it? I'll frame it, she said, as a reminder. He looked like he wanted to say something more, but didn't. He just turned, walked to his truck, and drove off, dust swirling in his wake. Carla closed the door behind him, locked it, and leaned against it, the envelope still in her gloved hand. For the first time in months, she didn't feel anger or fear. She felt nothing but release. An hour later, Mara appeared at her door holding 2 coffee mugs. Tell me he didn't look you in the eye. He tried, Carla said, accepting the mug. Didn't get far. Mara grinned. How's it feel? Like breathing again. They stepped out onto the porch, where the late afternoon light painted the neighborhood in warm, golden strokes. Mara raised her mug in a toast. To clean slates and paid debts, Carla clinked hers against it. And to boundaries that finally cost them something. Mara laughed, shaking her head. Queen behavior. Carla smiled, the smallest one yet. Damn right. They stood there in companionable silence as the cicadas hummed and the sun sank low. The check sat on the table inside, untouched, waiting to be deposited or framed. Carla didn't need to decide yet, because for once, time was hers. As dusk deepened, Mara waved goodbye and crossed the street. Carla lingered on the porch, mug in hand, watching the lights flicker on across the neighborhood. Safe, steady, ordinary. Then, from down the block, a car engine turned over. A silver sedan, headlights off, rolling slowly past her house before stopping briefly at the curb. The driver's window lowered just an inch. A camera flash flickered once, white, sharp, unmistakable. Carla's breath caught, her pulse steady but cold. The sedan lingered for 3 heartbeats. Then it pulled away, vanishing into the deepening dark. The notary's office sat on the corner of South First and Mary Street, tucked between a tax prep service and a florist whose scent bled faintly through the shared wall. Carla parked beneath the shade of a pecan tree, her manila folder balanced on the passenger seat beside her. The morning light was crisp and clean, the kind of October brightness that made every color sharper, every decision easier to make. Inside, the office was quiet, sunlight striping the carpet. The woman at the reception desk looked up with a smile of recognition. Ms. Jensen, right on time. Mr. Ree? Lutz will see you now. Carla nodded. Good. I've been on time my whole life. Seems fitting to stay that way at the end of things. Mara followed close behind her, carrying her tote bag and 2 iced coffees. She's not dying, Mara said dryly. She's just cleaning house. Legally this time. The receptionist smiled uncertainly, not sure if she was meant to laugh. Carla's tone was steady. She's right. I'm just making sure the right hands hold the pen when I can't. They followed the notary into a narrow conference room. A small Texas flag stood in the corner, and a clock ticked somewhere above the framed certificate that read, Licensed, bonded, and impartial. Mr. Lutz, a short, affable man in his 60s, gestured for Carla to sit. So, Ms. Jensen, Updating your will today? Yes, she said simply, setting the folder on the table. And removing a few people who've proven unworthy of inheritance. He nodded without comment. Years of notarizing secrets had made him immune to the sting of family confessions. We can draft the amendment right now. As he typed, the rhythmic click of the keyboard filled the small room. Carla's list was short, deliberate. Tyler Jensen, removed entirely. Jenna Jensen, removed entirely. In their place, primary beneficiary, the Austin Teachers Renewal Fund. Secondary donation, Safe Haven, Women's Shelter, in memory of Lillian Mae Jensen. Carla watched the words appear, each one cleaner than the last, like someone scrubbing away residue until only truth remained. Any assets you'd like to earmark specifically? Lutz asked. My house, Carla said. And the bakery shares. The nonprofit will use them for housing grants and small business apprenticeships. I want what I built to teach someone else how to stand on their own feet. Mara smiled softly. Spoken like the principal you'll always be. Lutz printed the documents. 3 signatures, 2 witnesses, 1 notary stamp. Simple and final. Carla's hand didn't tremble when she signed. She wrote each letter with the calm certainty of a woman who'd already faced every battle worth fighting. Mara stepped forward next, looping her elegant cursive beneath the line marked witness. Here, she said quietly, handing the pen back, in case they ever question who stood by you. When Lutz affixed the notary seal, the metallic press of the stamp echoed through the small room. He looked up and smiled. There you go, Ms. Jensen. All settled. Carla leaned back in her chair. No, now it's settled. Outside, the sun had climbed high, scattering light across the windshield. Mara handed Carla one of the iced coffees, condensation slick against the heat. You really did it, Mara said. Tied every loose end with silk ribbon and steel wire. Carla took a slow sip, the cold sweetness grounding her. It's strange. For months, I was bracing for what they'd take next. Now, everything feels lighter. Mara smirked. That's because you just outlived their names on paper. Carla laughed quietly, the sound surprising even herself. Feels like oxygen, doesn't it? Like champagne, Mara said. They shared a smile before parting ways. Mara to her garden, Carla back to her car. The drive home was slow, deliberate. The wind through the open windows carried the scent of fresh-cut grass and sugar from the bakery down the block. The same bakery Jenna once mocked. The one that had survived recessions, storms, and now, pettiness. As Carla turned onto her street, the oak trees arched overhead like a cathedral. Her house appeared at the end of the lane, sunlight glinting off the new brass locks. She parked in the driveway and sat for a moment, hands still on the wheel, watching the wind ripple through the curtains inside. Her curtains. For the first time, the house looked whole again, not just standing, but breathing. She carried the notarized folder inside and placed it gently in her fire-safe box, right next to the deed. The sound of the latch closing was soft but sure, like punctuation at the end of a long, defiant sentence. Then she walked through the house, every step echoing with quiet ownership. The living room gleamed. The kitchen smelled faintly of lemon oil and lavender wax. Upstairs, the air was cool, calm, still. She opened the window, let the breeze sweep through, and whispered to no one in particular, "You don't win wars, you just reclaim what's yours." Outside, the sky stretched wide and clear, unmarred by storm or shadow. Carla stood at the threshold, coffee in one hand, her other resting lightly against the doorframe she'd once feared losing. Her house, her name, her peace. Then, just as she turned to close the door, she noticed it. An envelope resting on the front mat. Plain white. No postage. She knelt, picked it up, and turned it over. In the corner, scrawled in familiar handwriting, were 3 words: "You forgot us." The canary yellow paint gleamed like sunlight against the morning sky. Carla stepped back, roller still in hand, flecks of color dusting her forearm. She studied the door with quiet satisfaction. For years it had been navy, a safe, neutral color her ex-husband once insisted on. Now it glowed warm and alive, like a held breath finally released. She dipped the roller again, humming under her breath to the soft hum of cicadas outside. The air smelled of paint and honeysuckle. The house, her house, stood unbothered, whole, untouchable. Mara leaned over the fence, sipping from her thermos. "That color's a statement," she said. "It is," Carla replied. "It says, 'Still here.'" Mara smiled. "You ever get tired of being right?" "Not once." By noon, the paint had dried smooth and bright. The brass lock caught the light like jewelry. Carla pressed her palm to the door, feeling the warmth soak into her skin. That afternoon, she drove downtown, past the courthouse, past the bank that had nearly stolen her roof once, and stopped in front of the bakery that had been her quiet joy for 25 years. The Honey Finch. The little shop's windows were trimmed with sunflowers. Inside, a banner hung crookedly above the counter. 25 years of sweetness. The smell of butter and sugar hit her the second she opened the door, and she smiled at the sight of her small staff bustling. Young bakers she'd mentored, each one more confident than she'd ever been at their age. "Ms. Jensen," the manager called. "We saved you a seat." Carla waved, brushing flour off a counter as she passed. The bakery hummed with laughter, conversation, the soft whir of mixers. A framed article by the door, yellowed from age, read, "Former principal turns pastry maven." She touched the glass lightly. The business she'd built still thrived. The house she'd built still stood. Every threat, every betrayal, every ounce of stolen peace had turned into proof of endurance. When she left, the staff handed her a box tied with string. Inside were 2 lemon tarts, the same kind she'd baked the week she paid off her mortgage. She smiled. "Still my favorite flavor." A few days later, the doorbell rang. Emily stood there, her posture tentative but hopeful. Gone was the glossy veneer she'd worn when she'd followed Jenna's lead. She held a small paper bag and a soft, uncertain smile. "Hi, Mrs. Jensen," she said. "I didn't know if you'd want to see me." Carla stepped aside. "If you've got honesty in that bag, come in." Emily laughed nervously and crossed the threshold. The scent of lemon and wood polish filled the air. "I wanted to say thank you," Emily began, "for not reporting me. I held that key longer than I should have, and I knew it wasn't right." Carla studied her. "Knowing it wasn't right is the first step. Doing something about it is the second." Emily nodded. "I left them. Jenna and Tyler. I saw what it did to them. What it did to you. I didn't want to live like that." Carla opened a nearby drawer, pulling out a small envelope. "Then maybe you'll take these." Inside were 2 old photographs. One of the house during its first renovation, paint peeling, garden bare. Another of the bakery on opening day, sunlight streaking across the window display. Emily looked down, touched. "Why are you giving me these?" "Because you remind me of me when I started," Carla said softly. "Scared of the wrong people, but brave enough to change course. Keep them. A reminder that rebuilding is possible." Emily blinked back tears. "Thank you." Carla reached for a small envelope tucked beneath the photos. "And this, open it later. It's a letter about lessons they don't teach you in business school." Emily hugged her before leaving, the kind of hug that held both regret and relief. When the door closed, Carla felt the house exhale again. A week later, the neighborhood came alive. Folding tables appeared on lawns, grills smoked, and laughter spilled into the street. Someone had decided that Carla's yard, shaded by the great oak, was perfect for the annual block party. "Permission granted," Carla had said. "Just don't trample my begonias." By evening, the whole block glowed with string lights. Kids darted between chairs. Someone strummed a guitar, and the scent of barbecue mixed with the faint sweetness of the lemon tarts Carla had brought from the bakery. Mara appeared beside her, carrying 2 glasses of chilled rosé. To a woman whose patience lasted longer than her paint job. Carla chuckled, taking the glass. To a friend who knew when to hand her a hammer instead of a tissue. They sat under the oak tree, the laughter of neighbors drifting like music around them. Carla looked at the house, the yellow door shining beneath the porch light, the curtains fluttering, the windows reflecting soft orange from the setting sun. Her home looked alive again, like it was smiling. "This feels different," Mara said quietly. "It is," Carla said. "Because now, every inch of this place finally belongs to peace." They clinked glasses. Carla leaned back in her chair, letting the warmth of the evening settle on her skin. She looked out over her lawn, her space, her story, her victory carved into every corner. The laughter swelled, the light softened, and for the first time in years, she felt entirely still. She glanced at the yellow door, its glow steady against the dusk, and smiled. "I didn't raise my voice," she said softly. "I raised my walls, and I never moved an inch."